Hey, what's up, guys? It's Dave from Military to Millionaire. Today's episode is awesome. We have a 2-for-1 with veterans, Colby Bowers, Rob Palin, who run the Veterans Pride Investment Group, which is a syndication firm. They have gone from 0 to over 500 units in less than a year. This is huge. These guys are phenomenal, and they have a super generous business. They give money back for every investment they make. In fact, 20% goes to charities and foundations. And they're even, well, I'll let you, if you stick out to the end, you'll hear about something really, really, really cool they've got going on. Definitely check this out. There's a lot of value in here about the multifamily world and the transitioning from military to civilian life. Just a super awesome episode. Now, that being said, if this is your first time listening, thanks for joining the community. If not, welcome back. Show notes are found at FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcasts. Now relax and enjoy the show. Hey guys, on this podcast we talk a lot about the roadblock to success for military members in getting started in real estate investing. For many of us, the barriers of time, location, and not having the right knowledge keep us from building wealth while serving our country. Well, let me tell you about Storehouse 310 Ventures. They get it. Storehouse 310 Ventures is owned by 2 active duty naval officers that love to make investing fun, lucrative, and have a passion for education, theirs and yours alike. They offer full turnkey rental properties in a market where the numbers make sense, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yes, Milwaukee, home to the almost 2018 division titled Milwaukee Brewers, the well-known Miller Brewing Company, and a lot of delicious cheese. Storehouse 310's properties are fully renovated, leased, and have property management in place. Through their rigorous analysis and selection process, they do everything possible to ensure each rental property meets their high standards and offers fantastic returns. Storehouse 310s allows you to invest with confidence while you are living out of state. They have a network of lenders, insurance companies, contractors, a title company, and much more to serve you all along the way. There is absolutely no reason not to get started when you have the right teams and system in place. David and Stu, the owners of Storehouse 310, have been investing themselves for over 15 years. They are on a mission to help as many active duty, reserves, and military veterans create financial freedom through the power of real estate investing. They are honest, transparent, and they prioritize service and giving. They have even committed to give the first 10% of their profits to partner nonprofit organizations that support veteran causes. For more information about their program, send an email to podcast@storehouse310turnkey.com. Again, that is podcast@storehouse310turnkey.com. Tell David and Stu you heard about them through the Military Millionaire podcast, and they will get you going down the right path. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Dave from Military to Millionaire, and I am here with Colby Bowers and Rob Palin, who are together. They formed the Veteran Pride Investment Group. They're investors together, and well, it sounds like they've known each other for a very long time. Colby was in the Air Force for 23 years as a medic, and Rob was in the Air Force for 9 years as a medic, and now he works for the Department of Veteran Affairs. So I'm really excited about this because not only do they have, obviously, the military background, and the VA thing is really cool because I've got all kinds of questions about that process. But we won't dig into that tonight. We're going to talk some syndication and some real estate investing. So I'll let you. I think we started with you beforehand. So Colby, you want to introduce yourself? Oh, and because I'm being rude over here, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Can't tell you how much we appreciate being on your show and for inviting us. So so we're excited. But yeah, no, like you said, I did spent 23 years in uniform, deployed a lot. I just think I spent a lot of my time outside of the hospital realm and on these deployments, and worked with the Army, got to jump out of airplanes, do some really cool stuff until I got hurt. Got hurt a couple times, and kind of changes perspectives, and so ended up getting out and had been in real estate for about 15 years with the single family, and kind of like we talked about before, I was realizing it was creating a lot of brain damage trying to scale single family rentals, and really didn't want a job after I left a job of 23 years. And so wanted to get into multifamily, and that's Rob and I got together, and here we are.
Sounds good. I can concur with the headache. It grows as you grow. Rob, let's hear a little bit about your story.
Yes, sir. I was a military medic in the Air Force for 9 years as well. Colby and I met at Little Rock Air Force Base in the early 90s, actually. And we've been in contact for the past 25 years. I followed his real estate ventures, including him forming actually his own LLC of single family homes. I come from a veteran-rich military background in terms of my family as well as myself. I work for the Department of Veterans Affairs now on the Veterans Health Administration. I've always been involved in veterans causes. And Colby, after these 25 years, has known that I've wanted to get my feet wet in real estate as well. I'm not quite as experienced as he is, but over the past 5 to 10 years or so, he's known I've wanted to get involved as well. We combine these two ideas. In other words, getting our feet wet, getting more involved in the real estate realm, in particular in the realm of multifamily real estate, as well as combining that with profit for veterans. So the idea for VPIG was born, Veteran Pride Investment Group, and we donate 20% of our net proceeds to veteran and first responder charities that we make through real estate ventures.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I just want to add, we landed on this idea of doing the syndications and the multifamily and the giving back and the donation is, being a wounded warrior, and being able to participate in a number of these retreats to help in the recovery process. One of the things I noticed is it's a lot of time and effort for these nonprofits to raise money to put on these events. And so we wanted to be able to help them out. And so that's why we decided with a large portion to donate back. And it's a feel good. It's our why. It's what motivates us. But it's also helped open up a lot of doors and to grow how we have.
I think there's something to be said for that, both, mentally and physically, right? I don't know. I'm sure you guys have read the book Go Giver at some point, but it talks all about, donating and giving and how it's reciprocal in its own way. Like, I guess karma would be the way people talk about it. But yeah, it's definitely awesome to be able to spend time benefiting others, especially, when it's a organization or organizations that, you've seen firsthand the benefit of. So that's huge that you guys are giving back, which is just really cool.
And we, the company's been around for a little over 2 years now. And, like Rob said, we kind of had a little campfire discussion. Literally, we were sitting around the campfire in my backyard, I think at my retirement, right after my retirement, having a few beers. And this is how the idea popped in, and we've just grown it from there. We really, the last August is really when things really started going into overdrive. We spent probably the first year is really researching, educating, trying to figure out, what do we want to do? How do we want to build this company and what direction we want it to go? And we finally settled on the multifamily. And I think it was the end of last August, I actually went to a 3-day boot camp. And in Chicago, which is just down the road from Rob, we attended that, and it was a huge eye-opener. It really peeled back the curtain of what is a syndication, and it made us really realize that, hey, it's not that intimidating. And the bigger the deal, the easier the deal. It's kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But sitting there, education and learning, and we're like, man, it's easier to get a loan if it's over $1 million. It's easier to get a $10 million loan than it is $1 million loan through Freddie Small or Fannie. And it's like, it was like a wow. And I think personally, I've attended 6 or 7 conferences in the last year. And the importance of that is really want to stress to your listeners is educate yourself. So before we even invested in any deals on the syndication side, we invested in ourselves. And probably, Rob, you're the money guy, but we probably spent close to $20,000 on education in the last year. And the reason I say that, obviously not everybody's capable of doing, putting that aside, but even $500 to attend a conference is going to get you head and shoulders and move you forward. And since last year, we went from zero doors under management to, we just closed a deal last month that put us a combined total. We have 513 doors under management.
Wow. In less than a year?
Less than a year.
Less than a year.
We have probably another 200 doors. Well, we have an LOI out on, or a letter of intent, on a 116 unit. And we're also looking at a mobile home park.
That's the new thing these days.
Yes. Yeah. So
for good reason.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Off-market deals, and it's through the networking and education and research and everything we've done. So we're excited. So we got, a couple hundred more doors by the end of the year, and it's, we're moving along.
Just to add on to that, Dave, I mean, you made a comment in your Podcast for Patriots interview just recently here, basically to learn, network, and take action. I mean, those are 3 lessons that any newcomer, including myself, because I'm essentially a newcomer to the real estate space, you do those things, the networking is key. Network equals net worth. Absolutely. And it's amazing at these conferences, the people that we've met and the deals that have come to our table that we've been able to move upon just based on that participation.
Yeah, I would be willing to bet that every time I've invested, as far as going to a conference, I mean, I had 4 booked, but I'm still active duty, and apparently the military has decided I'm only going to 2 of those 4. So I'm trying to refund some tickets, but I bought flights yesterday. But every time I've attended one of those events in a big educational networking piece, easily been able to track and show that I've made all that money back in the next 6, few months, weeks, whatever, whether through deals or even just networking. In fact, I can attribute this entire platform to attending, and it was just a small meetup on a beach. It was just something that got posted on Facebook. I was like, ooh, I got to go meet that guy. And through that, I met several other people, and all of a sudden it was like this, now I'm hosting my own event on the beach, and now I'm doing this, and holy smokes, what's this? Hey, why should I start a podcast? Oh, they told me to start a podcast. Why don't I see what happens? And it's just insane what can happen through that. So I absolutely agree. And, I'll have to ask you offline what conferences you preferred over others. We don't want to, frustrate anyone too much, but that's just really cool. I can't believe, that's, by the time you're done with this other one, assuming everything goes right, that's like 673 units in under a year is just, that's hard for people who've been investing for a long time and have a name and a reputation and already found investors. So that's just very impressive.
It goes back. It's networking. You have to get out of your shell. Can't be an introvert. Just if you are, you can't be a germaphobe. If you are, bring plenty of hand sanitizer. One of the I can't remember who said it, but somebody came across, or like if as a real estate investor, if they stand there long enough, they need to know what you're doing. And at these conferences, it's the same thing. If somebody makes eye contact with me, I lock in and arm goes out, business card, and start talking. And a lot of times too, and our approach is we just don't go and say, hey, here's what we got going on, come invest with us and all this. It's more of how can we help you? And that's, especially when we're the other syndicators or investors or people in this realm, it's a synergy of effort. So, if they're, hey, what are your challenges? How can we help you? And it's a team thing. And you can't look at other investors, especially in the multifamily. I don't look at anybody as my competition. And we don't. Everybody we meet, even if it's in our primary markets, they're potential future partners. Because if, I have it written here, it's my reminder every day. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it's teamwork. And that's what I think with veterans in particular, we're really good at working, integrating in teams and building those teams and taking that into the civilian world. I think that's why we're cleaning house.
Yeah. Yeah. That definitely doesn't hurt. There's a lot. I talk about this periodically on my website, but there's just so much that the military brings to the table for people. Even from the smallest thing of teaching you to be decisive when it matters, and things just add up, and then working together. I think another big piece, though, I think the fact that you guys are so generous with your mission to donate. I think to, was it Tom's shoe company that came out of nowhere because they would donate a shoe for every shoe bought. And I think people really believe in that. So it's one thing to find or to invest with people and, get a good return or a decent return, but it's a whole other thing when you're able to do that and know that you're also still making a difference, which is just really cool.
Yeah. And Rob kind of coined it for our company. We call it profit for a purpose.
I like it. I'm gonna write that down. Make sure that goes in
The more money we make as a company, the more we can donate, and the more of our fellow, brothers and sisters in arms that we can help.
Our initial mission and vision for Veteran Pride Investment Group was that exactly. And the question was, how are we going to secure profits to be able to accomplish that mission? Real estate seemed like the reasonable answer. Multifamily was the evolution, and here we are.
Yeah. Super cool. So I guess I would ask, if somebody was looking to get into the syndication realm, I guess if we pull it back from the why a little bit more to the how, what would be some pointers you might talk to them about as far as the syndication realm? Because I know it's totally different. For anyone listening, by the way, who doesn't understand that really long word, it just means a whole bunch of people joining together to buy an apartment rather than trying to do it on your own. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And it goes back to building your team and your network. And honestly, that's why, and David, it's something you got, go to the conferences for a lot of the same reason. Is one is, yes, there's the education piece, but you go to so many conferences and you can pretty much regurgitate the curriculum, and it doesn't really matter who you go to. In multifamily and the syndication, it's really the same format. Really what we're going for now is we go for the networking. And what we're finding out, and everybody has a different investment criteria, and that's really the key important, and why I need to figure out is what is your strong suit and what do you want to get into. So, like we focus on Class C properties, and for your viewers, if they don't understand, Class A is basically your brand new, top of the line, newly built, Wi-Fi, all the greatest and latest amenities, all the way down to your Class D are your older, very old, probably on a rougher side of town. So we like to be above that. We like the value add of the Class C property. So we focus on 1980 or newer, 40 plus units, and where we looking at a reposition or a value add. So, and for a little bit of explanation on that, and a reposition is we're looking for the mismanaged. If it was a mom and pop that owned it, they haven't raised rents in 15 years, are happy of getting their check. Maybe a little bit of deferred maintenance, but basically it's not being managed properly. So we can go in, get new management, reposition that property, and increase the value. The other side of that is a value add, kind of taking the same properties, but going in and adding CapEx to it or renovation costs, and go in, rehab the properties, increase rents, and you increase in the value in that aspect. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because there are folks, there's syndicators out there that their focus is Class A properties, and you have Class B. We happen to be in the Class C. So part of the network is we're going out is, hey, here's what we're into, here's what we're like. What do you like? And that goes for our investors too. Some investors like the yield of a Class A. Some others want, the cash on cash and the value add of a Class C. And we put those in our Rolodex. So we come across a property, we underwrite it, and we're like, man, this is a good deal. We'll go ahead and we'll lock it up, put it under contract. And the same day that LOI goes out, or really, not when the LOI goes out, prior to that, as we're underwriting it or we're getting ready to send it out, we're already reaching into our Rolodex of going, hey, here's what we've got. Who's interested? Because we built those relationships and we start building a team. I have two or three broker lenders on speed dial. I'll send them the stuff. They're already underwriting, sourcing everything out. I have, potential sponsors because, being an enlisted guy in the military, I don't have a high net worth. I'm getting there. We're going to get there. But, some of these deals that are, $3, $5, $10 million, you're going to have some folks in there that have that bank account.
Yeah.
So that's when we're out there networking. We're bringing this team together, contacting it. So as soon as that acceptance comes in and we go under a purchase agreement, we hit the ground running. So that's what we're doing. And you got to find your niche. If you go in there and you're like any multifamily, you're going to flounder. So we focus on very specific. And when we first got into this, we were kind of all over the place. We were kind of the shiny object syndrome or the squirrel. And we weren't making a lot of traction. But once we sat down, we're like, you know what? Instead of being a jack of all trades, we're going to be a master of Class C properties in these markets. And as soon as we did that, it was almost like a floodgate. We had people seeking us out, looking for deals. We've had investors come out and they want to be the sole source investor.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, I mean it's been great. It's just by planning and being focused.
I think
Hey, just to add on to what Colby was saying in terms of syndication, especially for your listeners, one of the biggest lessons I've taken away from the past 2 years as a novice, basically, to real estate, by attending these conferences and networking with folks and speaking with some of the folks that Colby's referenced, is a lack of capital should not be a barrier for you. The trick, the secret, is being able to find and analyze and isolate good deals. If you have those capabilities, if you have those analytical skills, you don't need the capital. It is out there in the market, and others will be willing to partner with you.
I agree. I tell people that all the time, and they always kind of look at me like I'm crazy. But no, if you find the right deal, there's a lot of people in the real estate world, and if they didn't find it, but it's good, they're still going to want to dump money in and join you.
Absolutely.
And I forgot, I was going to mention this earlier. You mentioned it. I think it was you, Rob, who said this earlier, and I didn't peel the onion back, but I just wanted to. You mentioned the financing, and
yes.
So when I was buying my 10 unit a year and a half ago, I remember I called a guy who showed up in the phone book as a commercial broker in the area. And I was like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna be perfect. And within like a minute on the phone, he told me no. I was like, man, this guy didn't hear anything. And then he told me what's probably one of the most powerful things I've heard and driving forces for a while was basically, look, man, that's cool, but you're thinking too small. Call me when you've got a $5 million deal or bigger. We don't touch anything under this many units, this much, this, that, the other, and he was very specific. He's a big commercial lender. And it was just eye-opening for me to have somebody literally tell me, when you find a deal this big, I'll close it faster and it'll be easier than what you're looking to do right now. That's people don't understand that. It's not as scary as you think.
Absolutely. And in terms of what you're discussing, it's all about establishing credibility. For example, 2 years ago, when we had no multifamily units under our belt, we had maybe 5 single-family homes. If we call a broker on the phone, they're not going to give us a time of day. However, today, if we call someone up and say we have 513 doors, they know that we can close deals. They know we know how to find deals. They know we have a network in place to put a team together to take deals down. So in that respect, it's about credibility.
Yep. Yeah, credibility and networking, that's huge. I like that you mentioned the focal point for your investing, the Class C properties. For one, because people let Class C and D properties scare them away, and I have a Class C, and I love it. In fact, it's probably my best cash flow per purchase price, and honestly, one of the fewest headaches I've had. I've had some evictions. I had someone get told he had like a few months to live, and when he moved out, he like took out my roof with his U-Haul. But those are all small things compared to the cash on cash return that I have through that property. So I love that you mentioned that that's your niche, for one, because it will show people that you can make anything work. But the fact that you only focus on that, I think, is huge.
Yeah. Well, if you don't get focused, you start spreading your time and energy, and you become unproductive. You start spinning your wheels. So while it's just Rob and I, we're focusing on C-class properties, and apparently we're also mobile home parks over the next couple of weeks. Because when the numbers work and it falls in your lap, you got to look at it. It's just can't look a gift horse in the mouth. But we've already talked. We're down the line as we grow, we're able to bring on some employees and stuff. Yeah, we'll be able to branch out into maybe mixed use commercial properties. We may get into Class A, Class B. we'll have that luxury to be able to, to put it to dabble. But right now we're putting all our time, energy into, the Class C's, and it's paying the bills, and we're growing. And so, we stick with what we know for right now.
I think it's good to become an expert in a certain market and niche, especially when it comes to multifamily. But Colby does bring up a good point. It's all about the numbers, whether or not the numbers work. Yes, everyone has their certain markets they like to focus in. In our case, it's Northwest Arkansas. We're actually starting a meetup up there that's going to be starting the second Monday in September. And it's going to be meeting the second Monday of every month, if I'm not mistaken, Colby.
Yes.
So Arkansas is our particular market. However, we look at deals everywhere. We own properties in multiple states. It's all about the numbers. If the deal is right, then you pursue it.
My ears just hurt. You can't see with my headphones, but I'm from Little Rock. We talked earlier before we started recording that you guys met right around the corner from where I'm from. And I am becoming much more intimately familiar with, because I've been doing my homework, the exact market you're talking about, Rogers, Bentonville.
Absolutely.
Washington. Yep.
Yeah. And I was looking, I think it was Bentonville the other day, and I pulled up population growth for the last decade, and it was like 47% or something nuts like that. And I was just looking at it, and I was like, what was I doing 10 years ago? I knew people here. I should have bought a house here. What was, but I was looking at that the other day, and because I most of my stuff's in Springfield, Missouri, so right around the corner, hour and a half, 2 hours away. And that's a market that definitely intrigues me. So I can appreciate why you're investing in that area.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when we were at these conferences and stuff, everyone asks, hey, what market are you in? We're in Arkansas. And we get to like, what? What Arkansas? But when you peel back the onion and you actually look at the two MSAs, you look at Little Rock and then specifically Fayetteville and Rogers and all that up in that area, it's the growth, the job growth, the population growth, median income, all the growth. It's actually better than Denver.
Yeah.
My backyard. And
affordable, at least comparatively.
And it's still affordable. Cap rates haven't been suppressed like they hear. Class C property here in Denver is going for 4 to 5%. And it's been value added like 4 times. So there's no meat on the bone.
Another pool.
Yes. And all the institutional money is in the big market. So, Denver, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, all these, all everything you hear in the news. Well, we don't have billions of dollars yet, so we can't compete. So we're going to those tertiary markets, the ones that are going to have growth, that are going to continue to grow. And that's where we're putting, our focus on. And, we're staying nimble and be able to move, and, we're making things happen. And so, and then when this potential contraction, if it ever, comes, it depends on who you talk to. We know everything goes in cycles. We're going to be back up. I love the Denver market, all those big cities. But everybody that's buying at a premium, and obviously, and in my opinion, and a lot of folks' opinion, they're overpaying. I'm going to be there to help them unload that off their hands when they get in trouble here in a few years.
I've seen I don't want to say writing on the wall, but there are some, and I think it's a little bit more prevalent in the multifamily realm, but there are definitely some people who are, as you said, cap rates are getting compressed. I remember I was talking to someone the other day in Springfield, and they were asking for a specific cap rate, and I was, just trying to explain that there's no way that anybody's going to touch that property for that cap rate in that market. But I think it's just because, I don't know, maybe it's just because multifamily is kind of it's not a really, I don't want to say it's a hot topic. I think that's just because I know multifamily people, so I see it all the time. But yeah, there's definitely some people that may or may not be overpaying in those big markets, which I think is really cool that you guys went to one that's not quite as well known, but clearly doing very well.
So far.
Well, and the nice thing with a market like that in the Midwest is, when the market crashes in the U.S., it's much less volatile. So you may not see quite as much appreciation, but you also don't see houses dropping $400,000 in value in a year. So,
yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because honestly, that is part of our our market research is looking as, and we've been using the, 08, 09 crash as kind of our benchmark, is looking at a lot of these different markets. How did the real estate, specifically, how did multifamily fare? And, what we like about, the Arkansas as a whole and, Fayetteville is they didn't really have much of a decline.
No.
It's just a little blip. And if you look back over 20 years, they have a nice, steady incline, and it doesn't have the big swings. I think big swings would give me a heart attack. So I like steady and slow, because our philosophy is we're not multifamily flippers. When we look at a property and we invest in it, we look at everyone as like we call them legacy properties. So we plan on holding on to them for 20 plus years. Our goal is to turn these properties over to my son, who's 4, and Rob's grandson, who's 4, down the line. So, it's all about the cash flow and the long-term hold.
I agree. So kind of like to take a moment and transition, I guess, kind of away from the multifamily, because I have a question that I think you guys might be good for answering, especially because you both have a medical background, which I don't know specifically what that has to do with this, but it makes me think you'd have some insight. And I think that's purpose, right? So I talk about this sometimes, and I don't usually bring it up on the podcast, but I also don't usually get to talk to 2 people who may have a somewhat similar insight into this. And I'm rambling about all this just to say, that obviously the veteran community has some issues with people when they transition, have a really rough time. And I would be curious to ask, how has real estate and multifamily, do you feel like this has kind of given you a purpose to smooth that transition, and how that's kind of played into you going and it's just not always an easy move. Super difficult question that you didn't expect. So if you don't want to talk about it, I can edit all this out.
Well, Rob, you've been out a lot longer. I mean, I have some thoughts, but Rob, I want to kind of hear your perspective. You've been a civilian longer than I have.
Forgive me, Dave. What exactly is your question?
Oh, see, now I'm going to have to edit part of this out.
I apologize.
No. So I guess I'm just asking, so the transition from military to the civilian world is often a very rough one for service members. We see all this through the news. And I would be curious to see if the purpose behind you guys building an empire and giving back has helped with some of those difficult things that you go through now. I mean, maybe more so in the recent years out of the military than, a little bit while back, but I don't know. It's just kind of thoughts from me.
Okay. It's kind of a segue actually into another question that you typically ask, but the beauty of real estate is it's unlike any other investment sector that you get involved with. For example, the military, when they discuss with troops to talk about their retirement, they talk about Social Security, they talk about TSP, they talk about investments, 401ks, and so forth. The difference is with real estate, if you can get involved with that, you get involved at an early age, at the lowest rank possible, or even if you're transitioning as a veteran like myself that's not retired, get involved with it as early as possible. Why? Because it not only provides you cash flow, in other words, return on your investment, but it also provides you capital appreciation and an asset that's tangible to you. You get a double benefit over this little triad that the military teaches you in terms of saving money.
I agree.
And I'll add to that. I'll tell you from my perspective at transition, I worked for a Fortune 500 company for approximately 10 months after I retired, and then realized that it sucked. I went. So I was a MatchCom functional manager, and a squadron superintendent. So I was an E8, but I could have stayed in for E9, but I saw the writing on the wall and realized, hey, this isn't for me. It's I've done my time. But when I made that transition, especially going from combat units and deploying all the time, then going back into the medical career field, it's a night and day difference. So even that transition was a huge struggle. But then when I left and I had, I was at a manager level, and I had 14 civilians that I'm like, I'd rather go back and supervise and oversee 100 plus, troops than those 14 civilians. I mean, they were great individually, but it was a hard transition of, being politically correct, being, touchy feely. You have to, to smile. You can't just, HR is on speed dial. And, plus and really, and then the biggest fire for me is they had me working 4 hours from home. And, when I was in the military, I had to work away from my family. But, on the civilian side, I'm like, I don't have to do this. And then, so yeah, I was just like, talked to the wife and stuff when it came down, and she's like, you don't need to stress. And I will tell you, since I've done this job, started doing it full time, I've gained 25 pounds. My stress level is down. I probably need to get a row machine or something to put in my office that I work from home. But I spend more time with the family. I do block scheduling. I get up in the morning. I work for a few hours. I get up like you, Dave. I'm up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I work before my family gets up. I eat breakfast every single morning with my 4-year-old son and my wife. I make my wife coffee. I go back down and I work for a couple more hours. I come up, I eat lunch. I'm home for dinner. If we want to go out and do something during the day, during the week, I rearrange my schedule. I don't have to answer to anybody. So what real estate has done for me is decrease my stress, made me fat. My 6-pack is now a pony keg. But I'm gonna work on that. But it's the time with my family, and it's because of real estate. The coolest thing, I do want to share this, the coolest thing when I realized that this is I've made the right decision, is I had to make went out to Hawaii actually earlier this year. And I actually closed a deal sitting on the beach on my phone playing with my 4-year-old son. I'm like, how cool is this? So that solidified it. And that's why I'm bullish on real estate. I think it should be a part of everybody's investment portfolio. You don't have to be in it as like Rob and I. We'll gladly take your money and invest it for you and help you get there. But yeah, I can't speak enough. It's helped me, my family, and I'm able to help veterans. We have a mission again. I feel that I have a mission, and it's a wonderful thing.
It grants you freedoms that many 9-to-5 jobs just simply won't. You have an opportunity to be involved to whatever extent that you want to in the properties that you acquire. You don't necessarily have to have a fantastic credit score. You don't necessarily have to have the capital to do it. You have to have the drive, the motivation, the desire.
I'm super glad that I asked that question, as awkward as that was and as much as I couldn't spit it out. So I feel like part of the reason that I started this whole website, if I really look back, is that I knew that whether I got out early or not, the military was going to end. And I know that not having a purpose makes that transition difficult. I was like, okay, I got to create something for myself to have a mission or a purpose. How do I do that? And I was like, well, I'm passionate about real estate. I'll talk about real estate and see if anybody likes it, which, either some people have just clicked follow for no reason, or people actually do like it a little bit. But that's been really cool for me, and I'm still in the military. So both of you, just awesome to hear, especially, the whole gain some weight, no stress, eat breakfast every morning with your kids, and make your schedule. That's huge. I mean, there are so many people out there who would kill for that, and they think it's just not going to happen. And the reality is that as your portfolio grows here, maybe now, maybe later, at some point, you're going to be making way more money eating breakfast every day with your family and doing whatever you want than you ever would have working as a Fortune 500 anything, and so much less stress. So anyway, so that's really cool. I'm glad I asked that question. And then I kind of segue into, we'll roll into some of these other questions I normally ask. And then I know we got something else we want to talk about at the end here. So my first question that I'll ask, and we can go, I guess we'll just stick with the Colby and then Rob, because that's how we've been going, is just if a E1, E2, if a young service member was to walk up to you and ask you about advice for real estate, what do you think would be the first thing that you would want to tell them?
The first thing I would tell them is do not buy a new car ever. Stay away from
25% interest is fine.
That is a depreciating asset that you're going to pay on that's going to be worth less as soon as you drive it off. Buy used. Don't do it. I know there's if any of you ones out there, everyone gets that, oh, I got my paycheck and all this, and if I can stretch this out to a 10-year payment at $400 a month, we can make it happen. Don't do it. Take that $400 and put it in something else. And I say step 2 of that is take that payment you're saving and I really recommend all of my troops is put 10% of your pay, pre-tax pay, into your TSP. And if you deploy and you get the tax-free combat pay, whatever, all those extra benefits, roll it into the TSP if you can, or put it into something that is going to grow. And the reason I stress that is going into my third piece is educate yourself into real estate and look at the pros and cons of real estate versus the stock market. And what's cool with your TSP is I don't know if any of your listeners know, and why I say put money into it, is once that gets up to a decent level over a few years, you can use that to help qualify for a loan. And you can even borrow from your TSP to help do a down payment. And you can combine, and what's going to be great now is with the new stuff, use your VA loan. Starting in 2020, there is no limit. If you qualify for it, you can get, there's no caps on it. It's not whatever the average was, 400-something thousand. If you can afford $1 million home, the VA will cover it starting next year. So that, Rob, I don't know if you have anything to add, but those are really my 2 to 3 big pushes.
Essentially, I'd reinforce what Colby said. And basically, Dave, what you said again during that podcast, real estate offers tremendous returns. They offer longitudinal returns. Learn, network, take action. You don't need the capital. You need the education, the drive, and the determination.
I agree. I like that you hit, well, for one, I like that you're familiar with the new VA limit. No one seems to know about that yet. But the TSP, I've never actually, I don't think I've ever mentioned that anywhere. But yeah, I have almost reached the dollar amount that I want to cap my TSP at before I force all that money into real estate. But I have a pretty substantial amount there, not nearly as much as if I'd been smart about it, when I first got in the military, because I didn't know what I was doing. But I will never touch that. My plan is to never touch that, because that will always count as the reserves for any property I purchase. Just, hey, there's, 50 grand or whatever, 60, whatever it grows to, sitting there, and that's my reserves. So that's just really nice to know, because if I had 50 grand sitting in a bank account, I'd find a property to dump it in and then go, oh crap, I got to save up reserves. So, and if everything falls apart, you can always pull money from it, and then you're paying yourself the interest instead of a bank. So,
yep, absolutely.
Awesome. So the next question that I would like to ask you guys, and I always ask this, I'm not going to touch on what makes your method of investing unique. I think we've kind of gotten pretty into the weeds on what you guys do, and that's huge. So I'd ask each of you what's the one resource, book, course, resource, whatever that you recommend to anyone looking to get started in real estate or improve their finances. Well, I think Rob and I, because we're
in agreement on this one.
Yeah, we're. Rob, go ahead. I talk too much at times. Go ahead, bud.
2 books, actually. Ironically, Colby made me read this book. I read it in the Deer Stand in 2017. This was right after VPIG's birth, I guess you would say. And that would be Crushing It in Apartment Buildings and Commercial Real Estate by Brian Murray. It's got some great lessons. It's written in layman's terms. The second book is The Purple Bible, of course, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep.
The two reads I would definitely recommend to anyone new to this sector.
I feel like I've read Crushing It in Apartments, but I'm going to need to, there's a couple different Crushing It in books out there, so I'll have to pull that up and see if that's the one I've read. But if it is, it's a good read. And if not, then I'll go read that and add that to my list right now. Obviously, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I don't even know how many times, like it's so bad with that book that the other day I was sitting in the gym and I was like, man, I can't really hear this podcast that well over all the other noise in here. So I'll just listen to Rich Dad Poor Dad again, because I know that book through and through. So if I miss some parts, it won't matter.
I've loaned that book to at least a half a dozen people that are now entering the real estate space.
Yeah. And what's funny is I don't even think you can count it as a real estate book. I mean, it's got some pieces in it, but it's a mindset book.
It is.
Yeah.
But again, mindset is everything. I mean, there's all kinds of mental blocks to folks getting involved, especially the younger ranking in any military branch, thinking that they don't have the resources to be able to get involved in real estate. There's creative financing, there's creative deal structure, and we all know this.
And believe it or not, the real estate is not super huge on telling you all the mindset of thinking through efficiency and paying other people to do stuff and working smarter, not harder. I know that's hard to believe that they're somewhat industrial aged, but I struggle with that at work. I've become that guy as I start thinking about whether or not to transition. I've become that guy where I'll find myself like starting to ask why we're doing something a certain way, and everyone's just like, don't say it. And like, so, but then I'll like put my hand down and be like, okay, not worth it. Anyway, all that to say, so I know we were going to mention this. So so before, for those of you listening, I asked if there was anything they wanted me to prompt them about so we could talk about it. And they brought up something, and I'm going to let them tell you about it because it sounded really cool. And I told them I wasn't going to ask any other questions because I didn't want to hear about it until they started talking about it now. So I'll let you guys, let's hear this coolness.
Yeah. So, I'm not really known for my patience, and going slow, and so we like I said, we donate 20% of our profits to charities and stuff of our choice, and which is fine and dandy, but to me it's we're not doing enough. When there's 22 of our brothers and sisters that suicide a day, we have homeless issues, all this stuff's going on. So part of our 10-year plan was to spin off our own foundation. We just accelerated that, and we actually just made the decision 2 weeks ago, I think. We don't even have a name for it yet. This is how new this is. But basically the foundation is we're still figuring out the vision. What we're going to do is we are taking next October of 2020 is myself and 6 other wounded warriors who have yet to be identified or selected. And we're going to climb to Mount Everest base camp. And we're going to do this. One is as a overcoming our physical, mental limitations, but also to raise money and awareness for veterans. And right now we have two nonprofits. We may expand it out to 3 that we're going to try to raise money for. And our goal is to raise $500,000 for these 3 charities, to be split among the 3 charities next year. So that's something. That's how near and dear this is to us. We'll probably be funneling a lot of our profits and stuff into this endeavor to pay for the trip, get everybody over there, and all that. So so we're excited about that. And if we don't say it and make it public and set a date, it'll never happen. So we're going to make this public, and we hope hold us to it. So we hope in a year's time, maybe you'll have us back on and we can tell you about our trip.
I would love to hear about that. That's so cool. I just watched one of the movies on Everest, and my wife made me promise her that I would never hike Everest. And I don't know that I can really make that promise. I don't know. She was like, that's not one of your goals, is it? We'll see how the knees hold up. That would be so cool.
And there's a reason why we're only going to base camp. My wife, because I have TBI, is she's like, no, you're, brain swelling and head injury and going to the peak. She's like, no, over my dead body. Yeah, so base camp it is.
As I say, you say base camp, but for anyone listening, base camp's not at like 3,000 feet elevation.
No, I think it's like around close to 17,000.
Yeah, it's I mean it's up there still. That's no easy feat.
Dave, we still have spots open on this team that we're assembling. Perhaps you'll receive an invite sooner than you thought.
Oh man. Try to explain to my wife what I'm doing out of country. Just on leave for a week with some friends. Don't mind me. I mean, I guess depending on how bad my surgery ends up, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Apparently, and this is the most exciting thing I've ever been told by a doctor. They can fix me kind of, but I'll never be close to 100%. It's just going to be not as bad. So that was really nice.
Well, at the end of the day, you are talking to two medic real estate investors.
Yeah,
so.
There we go. There we go. He's like, I can get you from a grade 3 to a grade 1.5 or 1, but that's it.
Motrin and water, Dave. Motrin and water.
Changing the socks. Oh man, no, that's so cool. That sounds so, well. For what I mean, just the idea of being able to give back was huge. But starting your own foundation, having your own goal, and being able to do something so cool. I mean, it's cool. When you say talking Everest, I immediately think of, I don't know if you know who Jesse Itzler is. He's a billionaire, but he's behind a couple different companies. And I got to hear him speak once, and I'm trying to think. He's got this quote that I like absolutely love, but I would have to dig for it because I'm not thinking of the words right now. But he has a foundation and a race, and it's kind of like it's Everest themed, but it's basically like this big, steep, snowy hill that he just has people run up and down for like a day, and they call it like the equivalent of hiking Everest. But it's just a really cool thing to watch, and he gets so fired up about it. So to think of you guys being able to do something that is actually going to Mount Everest is just, I mean, that's so cool. And the real cool thing with that is not that you're doing it, but the impact that you're going to have, and that some guys are going to, get to do something like that when they never thought that would be possible again, and you're going to change their lives.
Yeah, and the goal is to actually, the participants that go with me have actually been participants in these nonprofits. So not only they getting to do this cool thing, but they're actually raising money to help the charity that has helped them.
That's cool. Yeah.
Which by spinning off the nonprofit and actually separating our business side from our charity side, it will allow us to partner with other organizations like he's mentioning, people that we've met through these other organizations and programs that they've went through. It's really going to expand our network in terms of charitable donation and outreach to veterans.
Yep.
That's so cool. I love it.
We're excited about it.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I look forward to, we'll definitely have to link up in a year and year and a half and talk about all this again and see where we're at. It'll be really cool to watch all this unfold.
Absolutely. We'd love to.
All right. So before we wrap all this up, is there anything else anything that we haven't talked about that you guys would like to mention before we close out?
No, I can't think of it. I think we talked about it, unless Rob, you've got something you want to add?
I don't think there's anything pressing. I mean, if it's okay, I'll put a plug in about how to contact us.
That was the next question, so right on.
My apologies.
No.
We, of course, have an all-inclusive website, which includes our property, our investing, our business dealings, as well as our veteran outreach and what we're trying to accomplish as an organization in that respect. Our website address is www.veteranpride.org. And you can also reach out to us by email at info, that's INFO, at veteranpride.org.
And we're always looking to expand our team. So if any of your listeners are, very analytic, they think that they're really good at deal underwriting, or they think they're good at finding deals, we want to talk to anybody, or if anybody's looking at, investing in future deals. And one of the things that, we're also doing with our deals is in the specific to veterans, and we want to expand it out to first responders, probably in the near future, is having a lower entry rate. A lot of times on the syndication deals, there's been stuff we've been invited to, and they're like, hey, you got $100,000. You can go ahead and you can buy a share of this syndication. Who do we know in the military? Very few that have $100,000 laying around. What we're actually doing is for veterans, and especially even active duty, to get their feet wet is, if you have $10,000, give us a call. Because we're trying to lower it down. We want everybody to be able to have the ability to diversify. And honestly, one of the best ways to learn syndication is being a limited partner.
Yeah.
You can learn and earn all at the same time. So,
on a similar note, I mean, of course, please follow us on social media. We do have a Facebook page. We do have a blog that we post to weekly, bi-weekly. And when we do spin off this nonprofit organization, even if it's not deals or real estate investing that you're interested in, if you are a veteran supporter, by all means, we would love to chat with you. We would love to partner up with you. There's strength in numbers, there's power in numbers. So help us to help our brothers and sisters in and out of uniform.
Absolutely. That's huge that you guys are allowing non-accredited investors to I mean, that's really big. And you're right. Being a limited partner is a pretty cool way to get involved in stuff. You get to see the inner workings without, it's nice to ride in the car before you have to drive it.
Exactly. It's peel back the onion, and the, SEC rules allow up to 35 non-accredited investors. And right now we're holding those for veterans.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. In fact, when I get done with this house flip, we might have to reach out and say, hey, I'd like to dump a little cash into one of these LPs. So assuming that this house flip leaves me with some cash when I'm done with it, I'm having all sorts of fun with. I had a picture the other day from this is like my first flip ever that's been just solo. It just kind of fell in my lap. And I was like, oh, you know what? We'll do this. And like contractor sent me a picture last Friday that was like, hey, the foundation's not supposed to fall apart like that. We're going to get back to you. I'm like, yep, you're right. It's supposed to be under the framing, not like a 2-foot gap and just crumble. So it's going to be interesting. But anyway, all right, guys, thank you very, very much for joining me this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure. This has been awesome.
Dave, it's been fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to another episode about my journey from military to millionaire. If you liked it, be sure to visit FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast to subscribe to future podcasts. While you're there, we'd love for you to rate the show, give us a review on iTunes. Now get out there and take action.